Well, way down below us is where the CaveClan keeps their brains trust. They cannot see and they cannot run. They're a strange breed, CaveClan.
Welcome to another Grandpa Dougo's slideshow. In this episode, we take a look at some of the smaller CaveClan branches in Canberra, Darwin and Perth. Oh gosh, oh golly. Okay, first start off with Canberra. The first reference I remember of Canberra was this article in Ildrono that Phil did in December 1996, issue 35. So he includes a location list that has about 10 drains on it. And at that stage, actually, it didn't have secret schools on it, Canberra's best drain, so the best was yet to come. So he probably was doing stuff since mid-96. This photo, that's Phil to the right, and Sick Puppy and Lady Dragonbane, or LDB, to the left. I'm not sure which is which, I get them mixed up. I think the one in the middle is Sick Puppies, the one that slipped over in Forgotten, the photo that I've used about 40 times over the last 30 years. This drain is, I don't know if you can still get into it. It's in a quite a famous location. It's probably the biggest, just about the biggest and weirdest shape Canberra. So we'd gone out to an area called Canberra in Canberra. So Canberra is K-A-M-B-A-H. And we're going out to do this drain. I can't remember which drain it is. Canberra drains are really similar, a lot of them, so it's hard to remember them just by their names. And suddenly we just heard this lady screaming, "Help, help!" And she was part of a bike family. So it was a husband, wife, and one or two kids. And he'd fallen off his bike, and his face was blue or purple. And Bathory, who you can see in the right of that photo, sticking his head out of that pipe, he was a Boy Scout, and he sort of had done life-saving type stuff before with the Boy Scouts, and he noticed something. The colour of his face was changing, and he said he's going to be all right, his colour's coming back or whatever, I can't remember. But she was screaming, the kids were screaming. Anyway, I grabbed my phone and rang 000. The dispatcher was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "We're in Canberra." And she's like, "Where in Canberra?" And I was like, hang on, I don't know. I said, "I'm a visitor." And there was these young guys that sort of come up to help or whatever. And I just said to the guy, I can't remember which one it is, probably the one wearing a cap. I give him a phone, I say, "Look, can you explain to them where we are?" Funnily, in hindsight, he had as much problems as me. And he's arguing with the person on the phone or having trying to explain where they are. And he's saying, "Canberra, in Canberra, the Australian Capital Territory." And he's like, "I'd hate to be dying waiting for an ambulance." He was really frustrated. But then the ambulance came. It was one of those linear parks. Canberra has them everywhere. Melbourne has them. I'm guessing most places have them to some extent. So I walked up to the nearest road, which wasn't far away, luckily, and I waved the ambulance over, and they're like, "Oh, we can't drive on that grass. This thing weighs a ton. It'll sink straight through." So anyway, they get their equipment, they go up. And I said to him, I think he's coming good anyway. Anyway, we all got in the drain. We bought fireworks, being in Canberra. At the time, you could still buy fireworks. And all those young punks that were hanging around, and the one that took the call to 000, we just walked up and popped the manhole and like, "Oh yeah, can we come down?" And yeah, we went down and let off some fireworks. But you can sort of see in that photo, they're a little bit like, what's going on? I think a Mick on the left is tagging, and they're like, "Oh my God, they do graffiti too." I don't know. It was probably an unusual little experience. That is not my hairdo, that's the manhole. I mean, it's mostly my hairdo, partially my hairdo, but that is just the manhole. I don't have an afro. Eventually, there was a second branch of the clan, which is Dan Man, who I think that's him squatting down, Mirror in the middle there, and some others. This is Bob in, Teaser, I think the drain was called, but it was just filthy with webs. It wasn't even a teaser. I mean, I guess the fact that it was a rectangular entrance and it had a heap of pillars inside, it was a teaser for Canberra, because Canberra just has heaps of RCPs. Mainly, it's all RCPs. Canberra does this annoying thing where instead of putting in a big drain, they put 4 RCPs in a row that are usually about 2 metres high. So, yeah, there's heaps of round tunnels. This entrance here, that entrance was to Secret Squirrels, and Secret Squirrels is probably, I don't know, I'd say twice as good as Canberra's second best drain, but that's just me. And I'm sure there are better drains. There's probably ones that have been found since I was really into it. But you can see that tunnel there on the right. That's huge. That's the main one in Secret Squirrels that goes to where the features are. I'm going to spoil it, so if you don't want to see the features, if you're going to go to Canberra, just go and do it. Just fast forward a bit, because the feature in this tunnel is, I think people call it the Chasm of Doom or the Temple of Doom or something. There you go, Canberra Pride. That was from the other drain. The Temple of Doom, I think it's called. And then eventually, yeah, there you can see it written there, Temple. That's Dan Man, those two photos. Then eventually you keep going, and God, everyone takes photos there. There's so many photos. That's a fairly recent one from maybe a year or two ago. Hidden took that. Then you get up to the top, and then there's an opening. Like we're still kind of underground in that photo. You can see the grill shadow, and then yeah, once you get to the top, if everyone hurry up and get to the top, then you got this beautiful grill. I say beautiful, I mean beautiful view from the top looking out. You can look back over whatever part of Canberra that is. It's a good drain. It's like up there. Like if you go to Canberra, do Secret Squirrels last, because everything else is going to... A lot of them are very similar. I don't know. Leave a message in the comments if you think I'm wrong. But 85% of Canberra drains, you can't even tell which one you're in. They're all so similar. This one was a little bit different. This one was, cool. It's got a weird shaped entrance. No, it's just a fake front. There we go. Like you can see, we're looking. Someone's cracking the shits at us. And they're like, I think we were tagging. There you go. I turned it sideways and turned it into Pac-Man. Canberra's like, it's definitely worth doing, but if you just love drains and you love doing pipes, Canberra's got heaps and heaps of pipes. I'm trying not to annoy Canberra people that are watching it. I mean, I often refer to Canberra as a concrete country town. That's Nomis's ass. And topside stuff, I don't know. Like, yeah, people used to do topside stuff. I'm guessing there'll be a bit of that around.
Somewhere way down below us is where the CaveClan keeps their brains trust. They cannot see and they cannot run. They're a strange breed, CaveClan.
Yeah, the Darwin CaveClan was a pretty short-lived thing. It was basically only active for a few months from mid to late 2005. So it's actually the 20th anniversary of the Darwin CaveClan, like right now, pretty much. Yeah, at its peak, it had about 5 members. So it was myself and Gilligan, and also Hanno and Juzzy were 2 of our mates up there. And Nomis came up and visited for a while and explored a few things with us. Yes, I was doing a big road trip around Australia in my old Kingswood panel van. I spent about 4 months in Darwin. That's sort of from about June to about October, November 2005. So Gilligan had already been living there for a couple of years, and I just moved into the spare room in his house in Rapid Creek. And the first thing we explored was a drain up in the Lianya in the northern suburbs. And that was with Gilligan and our housemate Hanno. So that was actually, I suppose, the official birth of the Darwin CaveClan. That must have been about July 2005. So we popped out of a gutter box. It was a pretty ordinary drain, like just, a standard 6-foot RCP, maybe with a couple of junction rooms. But we popped out of a gutter box just on a suburban street. There was a few surprised onlookers, I remember. So there's one particular photo of this historic event just after we got out of the gutter box that I think we actually just asked some random passerby to take the photo for us. Yeah, we found a few drains while I was up there, sort of mostly some pretty average ones. There was one in Casuarina, one in Winnellie. There's also a pretty crap one in the Water Gardens in Jingley as well. The Casuarina one was okay. Like, it was about 5 tunnels that sort of ran parallel with each other, and there were a number of junction rooms, and I think there was a grill in the Casuarina Square shopping centre car park. Like, you'd think that with such high rainfall, Darwin would have huge drains, but we never really found anything particularly big. Like, they mainly just seemed to run a number of parallel pipes next to each other rather than instead of a big one. Yeah, Winnellie, I reckon, was probably the best drain we found, although I can't really remember that much detail about the tunnel itself, just that it was a pretty good drain for Darwin anyway. But the entrance was in this really swampy mangrove area on Tiger Brennan Drive, so we're really paranoid about encountering a croc when we're up in the drain. It probably didn't help that we just smoked a joint before we explored it. But I mainly remember just shining our torches up ahead the whole way, like just looking for any signs of red glowing eyes, and if we saw any, we were just going to run. And I remember popping out of a manhole or something like that somewhere in Winnellie. Probably one of the good things that we did was the World War II oil storage tunnels, which are generally open to tourists and they're worth checking out. Like people that have been to Darwin probably know about them. But we managed to get access one night. I can't remember exactly how we got in, but we managed to get into some sections that aren't open to tourists. And we also got to explore the sections that are open to the public, but without any tourists being in there. There's a number of water towers throughout Darwin, but most are pretty hard to access. So Nomus came up and stayed with us for a while, and one night a few of us managed to climb the one on Stewart Highway in Parap, which is, I think, probably the highest one in Darwin. We're able to access it quite easily because it had scaffolding around it for a while because they were doing some work on it. I also managed to climb a water tower just off Mitchell Street in the CBD, like another time that I was up in Darwin back in 2003 when it had some scaffolding on it. Yeah, one night a few of us climbed a communications tower that was on this government land up near Lee Point. I actually only got about halfway up because heights aren't really my thing, but all the others made it to the top. And I reckon it's probably about 50 metres high or something like that for memory. Yeah, it's long since been demolished because that land's all been used for housing now. But yeah, definitely the best thing we did was these tunnels that we found. I don't really want to give away too much info and I'm unsure whether they're still explorable. But we went and checked them out a couple of times, and I think the second time we did them, they were extending the tunnels by building like a new branch to them as well. So there was another section of these tunnels that we could see through some grills, but we never actually really worked out how to get in there. So I left Darwin in like October, November, and then continued my road trip down the west coast to Perth. I'm not really sure if Gilligan did much exploring after that. So I think the Darwin CaveClan was a pretty short-lived thing, but it was definitely pretty active for those few months in 2005.
Okay, thanks to Green for doing the Darwin part. Great job. And Gilligan, thanks for trying to find photos, and he was trying to get involved in the audio for that, but being in Berlin made it a bit awkward. Green will be back in a minute with a little yarn about Perth. I don't really have a lot to say about Perth. Woody was the first person to move to Perth. As weird as it sounds, Woody was never really a crazy explorer. He did it with me and Sloth, but very rarely did he push for things, like let's go and explore drains. So yeah, the Ildrona thing was more of tongue-in-cheek. Alien, I think Alien went over before there was even a branch, I think. Maybe she went over and met Kia. Kia came along, well, the CaveClan forums say 1999, but I kind of think Kia and Wraith were in at the same time, and according to CaveClan forums, Wraith was in from 1997 to 98, so I've got a feeling Kia was around before 1999. Kia did heaps, apart from getting a PO box. Like other people I've mentioned, Kia had a life. I'm pretty sure Kia played in a band or something like that, but he did a lot of other stuff, so CaveClan was actually a hobby for him and not an obsession. And I've got a feeling he still, to this day, probably does a little bit of exploring every now and again. Kia, if you're out there, try and make it over for the 40th anniversary union on January 25th, 2026. And the Clannies are the night before, so I know it's a big ask, but if you've got a reason to come to Melbourne, maybe try and do it that weekend. The main problem with Perth, I guess, was geographically it was so far away. It was hard to drive to. It was expensive to fly to. So when these other branches started up, like, Canberra, Brisbane, Hobart, they were getting lots of interstate visitors, whereas Perth, D'Lo used to go over there because his family were over there. Dirge eventually moved over there. I don't know much about him. Ever since Cyclone Silogen went over there a couple of years ago, I've lost contact. The cyclone destroyed all communications, which is Silogen, like cyclones are known to do that. I've just put East Perth Power Station for all these power station shots. I think I heard Green saying South Freo Power Station as well. So most cities have more than one power station, so they may not all be East Perth Power Station, but I've just chucked them all in the same thing. But yeah, these cities are definitely worth having a look at. And I should point out, with Perth, it's fucking dangerous. Drains are really dangerous in Perth. They're just so, they're deeper. They're you got to get in manholes, and they're 40 metres down. And they go into siphons that have weir, floodgates. They're really dangerous. I can't stress it enough. Everyone that does them says they're really dangerous, and they are. You know, they are. Next week, I can't even remember what it is next week. I think it's Vic Country drains and locations. And then after that is maybe the Clannies, and then after that is, I'm just doing a photos that remind me of something. Photos that induce Dougo yarn. So yeah, I think there's another 3 to go, and I think I might have an idea for a 4th one. Hopefully by then the weather will be getting better and we'll start doing some drain walks. Prowler and I are going to do a doco on Diamond Creek Mines. And then I've got all those other ones that I mentioned a month or 2 ago. Okay, here's Green with a little 1-minute yarn. And then I think we'll just play out with some music. So cheers, thanks for watching. See ya.
Yeah, after I left Darwin, I drove down to Perth and spent a few months sort of between Perth and Margaret River because I was working on the vineyards there, so sort of going up to Perth a bit. I sort of mainly just knew graffiti people in Perth rather than explorers, but they showed me a few places, like not really any drains, but explored the South Freo power station quite a few times, which was an awesome place to get up on the roof and watch the sunset over the Indian Ocean. Probably one of the highlights I remember doing was climbing up the Dingo flower silos in North Fremantle, which is a bit of a well-known Perth landmark. The legend has it that the big red dingo on the silos was painted by a young Alan Bond before he sort of became a dodgy swindler in the 80s. The soap factory tunnels, which is I think what they're called, which is off the Swan River somewhere around North Freo. They were cool, like these sort of limestone tunnels sort of down the bottom of the cliffs. Also, climbed a few towers and did a few rooftops in the CBD and stuff like that. So I think a few drains and other locations have been discovered in the years since I was there, because I was there sort of late 2005, early 2006. So I would love to get back to Perth and do some exploring at some stage.